There's a reason some people walk through chaos without breaking. A reason why certain men can lose money, face rejection, suffer humiliation, and still wake up the next morning completely focused, calm, controlled, dangerous in silence. Most people think it's talent, intelligence, luck. But the ancient Stoics believed something far darker was happening beneath the surface of the human mind. They believed the average person is not truly in control of their own life. They believed most human beings are slaves to invisible patterns hidden deep inside the subconscious mind. Patterns created by fear, pain, trauma, comfort, repetition. And according to philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, the man who learns to control that hidden part of the mind gains something almost terrifying. Freedom. Not the fake freedom sold by modern society. Not endless pleasure. Not comfort. Real freedom. The kind that allows someone to stay calm while the world collapses around them. The kind that turns suffering into strength. The kind that quietly creates power, discipline, influence, and eventually wealth. But there's one disturbing truth hidden inside this ancient philosophy that almost nobody talks about anymore. The subconscious mind is always listening. Comment where you're watching from, leave a like, and subscribe for more deep content like this. Picture this, it's late at night. The room smells faintly like cold coffee and exhaustion. Your eyes are heavy from staring at a screen too long. Bills sit unopened on the table. Your phone glows in the darkness while thoughts race through your head like a storm you can't shut off. What if I never make it? What if I'm wasting my life? What if I'm just not enough? Most people think those thoughts are harmless. The Stoics believed those thoughts become identity. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Think about how dangerous that idea really is. Every repeated thought slowly rewires the subconscious mind. Every excuse repeated often enough becomes belief. Every fear rehearsed daily becomes reality. And modern life is poisoning people without them even noticing. People wake up and immediately consume anxiety, social media, comparison, fear, bad news, dopamine, noise. Their subconscious absorbs it all before the day even begins. Then they wonder why they feel weak, distracted, emotionally exhausted, and financially stuck. The Stoics saw this problem thousands of years ago. That's why they obsessed over mental discipline, not motivation. Discipline. Because motivation disappears when pain arrives, discipline remains. Epictetus was born a slave. Think about that for a second. A literal slave, beaten, controlled, humiliated. Most people would spend their lives broken after experiences like that, but instead he became one of the most respected minds in human history. Why? Because he realized something that most people never understand. Your external conditions matter far less than the subconscious meaning you attach to them. Two people can suffer the exact same event and become completely different human beings afterward. One becomes bitter, weak, hopeless. The other becomes disciplined, focused, powerful. The event is not what changes them. The interpretation does, and the subconscious records those interpretations constantly. That's why the Stoics were obsessed with awareness. They understood the mind could either become a prison or a weapon. But here's where things become uncomfortable. Most people secretly train themselves to fail every single day without realizing it. Every time someone says, "I'm unlucky," every time someone says, "People like me never succeed," every time someone avoids discomfort, every time someone chooses distraction over discipline, the subconscious absorbs the message, and eventually it begins acting accordingly. That's why people sabotage opportunities, why they procrastinate, why they stay broke while dreaming about wealth. Why they remain trapped in toxic situations that destroy them emotionally. Consciously, they want a better life. Subconsciously, they've already accepted limitation, and the subconscious always wins. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." That single sentence destroys most modern fears instantly. Think about how many lives are controlled by imagined suffering, fear of embarrassment, fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of failure, entire futures destroyed by things that never even happened. And while fear grows stronger in the mind, life quietly passes by. That's why the Stoics trained themselves to face discomfort intentionally. Cold mornings, hunger, silence, solitude, discipline, not because suffering is enjoyable, but because controlled hardship rewires the subconscious mind. Every time you survive discomfort voluntarily, your subconscious updates its perception of you. You stop seeing yourself as fragile. You stop seeing yourself as helpless. You stop identifying as weak, and that changes everything. Imagine waking up every morning and immediately proving to your subconscious that you are capable of controlling yourself. Not your emotions controlling you, not your impulses controlling you, you controlling yourself. That creates a different kind of human being, a dangerous kind, because a disciplined mind becomes difficult to manipulate. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. Even as emperor of Rome, surrounded by luxury and power, he constantly reminded himself that comfort weakens men when consumed endlessly. While others drowned themselves in pleasure and distraction, he trained his mind through hardship and reflection. Picture him late at night inside a military tent during war, rain hitting the canvas overhead, the smell of wet leather and smoke in the air. Soldiers dying outside, yet he sits there writing calmly about emotional control and inner peace. That level of calm isn't natural. It's trained, and maybe that's the forbidden secret nobody wants to hear anymore. The subconscious mind does not become powerful through comfort. It becomes powerful through repetition and pain. Modern people avoid pain at all costs. The second discomfort appears, they reach for distraction. Music, social media, junk food, entertainment, cheap dopamine, and slowly, the subconscious learns weakness, it learns escape, it learns emotional dependence. That's why so many people feel mentally exhausted today, even when their lives are easier than most humans in history. Their minds never developed resilience. The Stoics trained the opposite. They trained endurance, emotional control, patience, silence, because they knew wealth is not created only through money. It begins in the mind. A distracted mind destroys opportunities. An emotional mind makes impulsive decisions. A weak mind quits too early. But a disciplined mind builds slowly, quietly, patiently. And over time, that mindset often creates financial success naturally, not overnight, not through fantasy, through consistency. That's the part social media never talks about. Real power looks boring at first. Waking up early, keeping promises to yourself, controlling emotional reactions, working while nobody claps for you, remaining calm under pressure, repeating difficult actions until discipline becomes identity. That's how the subconscious changes, not through one motivational speech, through repetition, and repetition creates identity. A person who repeatedly avoids discomfort becomes someone controlled by fear. A person who repeatedly faces discomfort becomes someone controlled by purpose. There's a massive difference between those two lives. One lives reactively, the other lives intentionally. And maybe right now, while hearing this, you're realizing something uncomfortable. Maybe your biggest enemy was never the world. Maybe it was the version of yourself your subconscious kept creating every day. The version addicted to excuses, the version addicted to comfort, the version waiting for perfect conditions before taking action. The Stoics would destroy that mentality instantly because they believed action creates clarity, not endless thinking. That's another trap of the subconscious. Overthinking feels productive, but often it's just fear wearing intelligence as a disguise. Meanwhile, life keeps moving. Opportunities disappear. Time disappears. Potential disappears. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that death could arrive at any moment, not to create fear, but urgency. Because once you understand time is limited, excuses start sounding ridiculous. Suddenly you stop caring so much about judgment. You stop delaying action. You stop waiting to feel ready. You move, and movement changes the subconscious. Every disciplined action becomes evidence, evidence that you are capable, evidence that you can survive discomfort, evidence that you are stronger than your impulses. Over time, those small pieces of evidence completely rewrite identity. That's why some people transform their entire lives within a few years, while others stay trapped for decades. Different subconscious conditioning. One trains weakness daily, the other trains strength daily, and eventually the gap becomes impossible to ignore. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Most people hear that and think it sounds philosophical. It's much darker than that. Because if your emotions control your decisions, you are not free. If your fears control your actions, you are not free. If pleasure controls your discipline, you are not free. You are programmed. And the modern world profits from that programming. People distracted emotionally are easier to manipulate. People addicted to comfort are easier to control. People dependent on validation become slaves to approval. The Stoics rebelled against all of it, silently, internally. That's what made them powerful. Not physical strength, mental sovereignty. The ability to remain emotionally stable while everything external changed constantly. Imagine how rare that is today. A man loses money and falls apart emotionally. A relationship ends and someone loses their identity completely. One criticism destroys someone's confidence for weeks. Why? Because the subconscious attached self-worth to external conditions. The Stoics trained themselves differently. They detached identity from temporary circumstances. Money could disappear. Status could disappear. People could betray them. But their inner discipline remained. And that inner discipline became unshakable confidence. Not loud confidence, quiet confidence. The kind that doesn't need validation. The kind that keeps building even during failure. That's usually the turning point in life. Not when circumstances magically improve, but when the subconscious stops identifying as weak, and that transformation feels brutal, because it forces honesty. No more blaming the world, no more waiting for rescue, no more hiding behind excuses. Just you, facing yourself directly. That's why silence becomes so important. Silence exposes truth. Most people are terrified of silence because distraction protects them from self-awareness. The moment the noise disappears, reality appears. Regret appears. Fear appears. Loneliness appears. But the Stoics entered silence willingly because they understood something modern people forgot. You cannot control your life if you cannot sit alone with your own mind. And eventually, if practiced long enough, something unbelievable happens. The subconscious begins changing. You stop reacting emotionally to every obstacle. Pain becomes information instead of destruction. Discipline stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like freedom. You become calmer, sharper, more patient, more focused. People notice it without understanding why. Your energy changes. Your decisions change. Your standards change. And slowly, opportunities begin appearing because you finally stopped sabotaging yourself from within. That's when wealth often begins growing too. Not just financial wealth, mental wealth, emotional wealth, spiritual wealth. Because the richest people psychologically are often the ones who learned how to master themselves first. In the end, the forbidden Stoic secret was never about becoming emotionless. It was about becoming conscious. Conscious of your thoughts, conscious of your impulses, conscious of the subconscious patterns quietly shaping your entire reality. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus understood something most people still refuse to accept today. The quality of your life is deeply connected to the quality of what your subconscious mind believes about you. And those beliefs are being programmed every single day by what you repeat, tolerate, avoid, and pursue. So tonight, when everything gets quiet and there's nothing left but your thoughts, pay attention carefully, because the voice you repeat most inside your own mind is slowly becoming your future. And whether you realize it or not, your subconscious has been listening the entire time.